guys. Good morning, everyone. My name is Giang, and I'm a CEO, co-founder of the Purpose Group, a company on brand and creativity in Vietnam, Ho Chi Minh City. It's really my pleasure here moderate this topic, and it's very interesting topic. We will talk about cross-border influence. And excuse me for my voice, a little bit low today. So this topic we're having the. Okay. All right. So when we talk about cross-border influencer, we exciting to have the three guest speaker over here, and I believe that these three guest speakers that we have in here are having a very rich cross-border culture, very rich cross-border exposures in last many years that working. So perhaps let's quick start talking first about anh Cuong. Executive Board Directors of Forbes, Chi is Vice Senior Advisors of Vietnam Brand Purpose, and Thanh is HR Chief Human Resource Officers of Masan Group. And would you like to quickly talk about yourself, just like few minutes each, so that everyone would know how cross-border and your experience working as a like risk, so everyone can know, what the background of all the guest speaker here. Maybe you could start first, and Cuong.
Well, thank you. Hello, proud to be here. I'm glad that, thank you, Hal, for inviting me with this minority person on the panel. And it's not a manner, so it's great. Among talented executives in the country, I'm very happy and excited. I guess the question would be cross-border experiences.
Yeah.
It's quite broad, but I'll share what I have in terms of personal experience. I moved from the States back to Vietnam 6 years ago, and I'm an entrepreneur myself, struggling entrepreneur. As somebody famously used to say, that most entrepreneurs, they're so stupid to think that they can do anything. So they go to any country, they can venture out to anything that they think they can be successful, which is very brave, it's very true. And that's where you learn. You fail and you repeat and you learn from it. Lots of lessons learned from moving from the US to Vietnam, investing into different ventures and starting different ventures. But we'll dive into that in details after. That's my introduction. Yes.
Great.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Visititra, for inviting me today. So I actually born in Vietnam, grew up in Vietnam, spent more than half of my career outside of Vietnam, and just recently returned to Vietnam during COVID time. So I used to work with Procter & Gamble in my early careers in Vietnam, Southeast Asia, then moved to Singapore, Thailand, Manila, then back to Vietnam. I was doing with Unilever Vietnam and Samsung Vietnam. And recently, I was the ex-vice president of a global brand called Clear for Unilever in Singapore. And that is when I had the experience to manage a brand in more than 40 countries. And that's also giving me some exposure of seeing the global business. And the latest one, I was a CEO of Pharmacity. And now I'm kind of helping with the Vietnam brand Purpose because I have a passion about building Vietnam brand. And that's why I'm actually here today, because I'm really excited to see all the young faces, because I believe this is the future of Vietnam. And, I really hope that we can together build a strong brand Vietnam. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you.
It's my turn. So the only Vietnamese in this panelist.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah. I actually started my career with KPMG, so there's nothing to do with HR from my first career. But then I have more than 20 years working experience in multinational organizations. So I have own experience in HR with European organization, American organization, Asia Pacific. So before I left MNC, I was the South Asia HR director for Cargill. I was sitting in the global HR team of Cargill Enterprise, like in Minneapolis. So before Cargill, I worked 10 years with IKEA. It's a Scandinavian company, also global role HR as well. So my experience, I think that, trying all different kind of the culture. And I've been in Masan group for like 1.5 years. So just only never experienced working for Vietnamese company before. But it's going to be, actually to me, that is very, very exciting journey. And which is, I'm going to tell you later how it works. Yeah, that's for me.
Great, right? So we're actually having the 3 guest speakers with very rich experience in multicultures. We're having from venture, entrepreneur, brand marketing, book author, and we have HR, board director, multiple roles that you have to play. And have you seen, and also working in multiple countries, multiple regions, have you seen any characteristic of Vietnamese, the culture, the Vietnam that have observed cross is what is unique about us as a Vietnamese, as being the culture, the people that have been working inside Vietnam or outside Vietnam, or different in different regions. Could you start first, maybe Nguyen, as a venture?
Okay. This community includes people from all over the world, right? I was born in Vietnam, but I bought into the American culture. Dr. Lai from Siemens is German, and Hui from Bosch and VinFast also German. A lot of people I met, my friend running law firms from the US, and lots of people from different parts of the world. So if you spend a significant amount of time in a foreign country, because it's not by choice, or it's not by choice, fortunate, you would be heavily influenced in the way that the country raised and educate. When I met a lot of people that are coming back to Vietnam, they bring that experience, practical experience. The education you learn, you can go to school in Harvard and the best MBA programs in the world. But when you bring it back to Vietnam, it has to be a little more practical and realistic. That's why a lot of the executives who are VQ from Scandinavia, from Japan, from Australia, they would be much more likely to be successful in the companies or organization that has tied to where they spend the most time. Doesn't mean that they were not successful, but it's very challenging. Whereas you grew up here, you spent significant amount of your time and then been there, and you get education elsewhere, you have an upper hand. You have more advantage running a local company. And that's the experience that I've seen. It's not a set example of leadership skills that people from America would be the same as people from Canada or France or Australia. Very different. And they all have to learn how to locally adapting it when working with big teams here.
How do you see that in the the Vietnamese is like working in different type of company and different environment? What would be a characteristic? Would you share the things with Nguyen about the ability of adaptation and adapting to a local culture?
To me, I would turn this question into different answer, right? You have 2 choices when you came back to Vietnam as a OV. You can choose the MNC or you can choose a local company. And it's very, very different. If you join the MNC, right, it's very, very much well-established cultures, mixed between Vietnamese and international. The adaptation is not that very high. You don't need change a lot. But when you enter into a local company, that is where you need to pay attention. And it requires a lot of flexibility, learning agility, adaptation agility. And one more thing very important is about how to manage multiple stakeholders. I'm sure that a lot of people sitting in this room have that experience. One more thing also, one more thing I just want to share that is about manage end to end. It's not about senior people sitting and do the strategy, and then you have the young people to do the execution. With the local company, global, the giant companies, like even for ourselves, like Masan, right? The senior leader also have to manage end to end, so which is strategy until execution.
So you talk a lot about agility, and you talk about adapting. Is that a character and flexibility? Is that you think is a characteristic of Vietnamese, or I mean, in general? I mean, as in, is that anything common in characteristic of Vietnamese?
I like to be more promoting Vietnamese culture, but I like to say yes. I think the key word that I've seen from many people and I've learned myself is resilience. And through tough times, we've seen during the war and post-war, different eras that Vietnamese, that they come together as a community. I think there's very specific and amazing values in this culture of people trying to come together and overcome that. So when she talks about a local Vietnamese company, or we call it local MNCs, let's say Vinamilk or Harfac is still an MNC, they do business in, or assuming Masan, they're still, it's not as established as larger organization that hundreds of years old in legacy, because our country, post-war, is quite new. It's only 40-something years old. We rebuilt, or trying to rebuild the economy and trying to figure out what angle that we're going to be known as. For example, China, as they moved up to high-value, high-tech manufacturing. Japan, they rebuilt their whole economy after the war in terms of technology, electronics, and automotive industry. Where does Vietnam sit? Where do we stand? We don't know yet. 40 years ago, until today, we're still known as a manufacturing hub, but it's very low value chain in manufacturing hub. The latest visit of the world's most valuable company, one of the world's most valuable companies, a chip maker, NVIDIA, pledged to do $250 million into Vietnam, and the media comes out and say, we did a whole deal with Victel, FPT, we signed, and then it's all the spiel. But what's missing is we're not there because we don't have the labor skill set to do so. $250 million for Jensen Huang is a drop in the ocean with that size of the market. Are we ready to do that? But the mindset would be, yes, entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneurial spirit in Vietnam, we all think that we can do that. But we, in addition, I think they're all very resilient, and they will try to get there, whether it's 5, 10 years' time. This is the role of the public sector to come in and help them to guide the path and say, are we going to be the next Taiwan in the chip war? Are we going to be in a certain space more service-oriented? I don't think so. Maybe high-tech manufacturing, because we have to find niche. But the resilient is what get the leaderships come together and help to guide the next generation in Vietnam to accomplish. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. And then when you were talking about, when you were writing a book, Chi, the question to you is that because she also author of the book called Vietnam Brand the Moment. And would you have for sure have seeing a lot of the Vietnam culture and studied that, what would be the the things that you've learned about that, and do you agree with Anh Cuong about the whole characteristic of Vietnamese?
Yeah, this is a question I asked many people. I actually did a survey of more than 200 people. It's not a big scale, but for people in Vietnam, outside Vietnam. Also, I interview some of quite a prominent people. Some doctors, some professor. I also have fashion designer Công Trí. I also interview people like Dr. Ngô Bảo Châu. The people that live in Vietnam, make their career outside, or people inside Vietnam. And definitely resilient was one of the big one. It came because of our history. Because if you look at our history, right, 1,000 years, we win all the war, right? Even the Mongolian, they came to China, they go everywhere, they didn't make it. They went to Vietnam, we win. Also, I remember when I was working in Manila, and there's one taxi driver, he asked where are you from? And I say, I'm Vietnamese. And he said, oh my God, Vietnamese. You show the world that a small country can win a big country. You guys are a fighter. So that actually is telling us that, we deep inside, we do have a fighter spirit. And that shows even more when we are in the most challenging situation. Even if you see after the war, right? We were basically closed the door. Because I grew up here. There was a time we didn't even have rice to eat. We had to eat cassava cake because not enough rice. But actually, we always make it more fun to eat. Because my mom said, oh, this is actually more tasty. So it's not like we suffer to live. We're happy to live because cassava cake is good, tastes good. We eat a lot of vegetable, right? And people ask why Vietnamese ask vegetable. It's not because it's more tasty, but it's because we don't have enough meat to eat. And during that time, we have to have allocation of 1 kilo of meat, the whole family. I still remember my mom said, oh, this one only saved for my grandma first, then the kids, then the adult. And that's why all the vegetable, we just cook, steam, what do you call it? Rau muống, what's in Viet, morning glory or kangkong, whatever you call, steamed cabbage, steamed egg, we dip in fish sauce, and that's perfect. So I think we are the fighter, resilient, agility too. One of the things when I work overseas, and my colleague always say, when I work with the Vietnamese team, because I was in Singapore and working with many countries, I say, Vietnamese, they always come with solution, and they always can make things really fast. When other countries, it takes them 2, 3, 4 months to do because they have a process like this to do. Vietnam, they can find a short route, whatever. They make things happen really fast, right? So I think that is the second thing. But I think there's 2 more things that I want to share, which came from my interview with the other people that I talked with. One is kindness. The Vietnamese, we are kind. Dr. Ngo Bảo Châu, he said, Vietnamese, we don't look for anything too perfect. As long as things are nice, beautiful, we'll be okay. We can live in harmony. We have actually more than 50 ethnics in Vietnam, and you don't see that kind of many fighting in the country, unlike other countries, right? We can live in harmony. And the other things is forgiveness, or, altruism, whatever you call. We can forgive the past, and we always look forward to the future. Today you see in newspaper, we are friends with everyone. We're friends with China, friends with America, friends with everyone. I think that is also our strength. We are more optimistic. We're looking forward. Of course, we have a lot of challenge and things that we have to improve to, but I believe those are the things that I actually appreciate a lot when I interview people for my book, and I think it's worth noting as a strength of our Vietnamese.
Thank you. So we talk a lot about the positive side of our characteristic, resilient, agility, resourcefulness, problem-solving, solution, everything, which is all perfect, sound very great. Is there anything that for people who coming back to Vietnam should notice, should be aware, as in they coming back, start working beside, everything have a 2 sides of the coin. That's a good thing. There's something that need to be, noticed, remarked. Is there anything you guys want to share? Culturally, socially, economically, is there anything you feel like you like to share to the team here?
Look at me, okay, sure. I think there are 2 things I want to mention, and then the rest I'm going to leave it to you guys. I remember Cuong say something about a language. So to me that, when it comes to the skill, right, skill set, I do believe that is our strength. When it comes to the language, it's the one thing that I believe. You speak English, but the way you speak English is English, right? But when you speak English to a Vietnamese, so that is something different. So Vietnamese may interpret your English, your wording in the different ways. That I have a lot of, I see a lot of issues when I have to talk to different people. So that is the first thing. The second thing is about the culture adaptation. So Vietnamese culture, with somebody who born and raised overseas. They are different with the Vietnamese, born, raised in Vietnam, go overseas and came back. So I'm talking about the first segment. I think even you say that, yeah, I'm a Vietnamese overseas, raised and born in like say in US, but actually, people look at you like sorry to say, but a banana, right? You are white inside, but you are yellow from outside, right? But actually, you are not a Vietnamese in that sense. And to me, that's why the culture, understanding, way of working, and the mindset of Vietnamese, truly true Vietnamese, and the updation when belong to the culture of where you are coming to. So to me, that's two things very important. And the first point.
What do you like to add?
This is a very interesting topic, and even the whole conference, there's a lot to unpack, and I think it's more complicated than on the surface of that. So this theme is enhancing Vietnam image and presence in an international global scene. But I met a lot of interesting people from last night, and the same point that you were referring to. Each of you, at a certain point, decided to want to explore moving back to Vietnam. And you spend a significant amount of time overseas. The US, France, Australia, Germany, whatever, you have formed your own identity, and you might have went through a sort of identity crisis. Whether you're a banana, people looked at me when I first moved back like, you're an American, you're not a Vietnamese. Like, okay, that doesn't matter, but I run the business, so I'm going to do it the way I do it. It's very arrogant. And I've learned it the hard way. Many people in a senior positionship would probably repeat the same mistakes. Well, don't do it the way that I did it. Like, I didn't talk to a lot of people. One of the people that I really admire is Anh Đại Từ. He's the owner of a company called Open Asia. His dad is Vietnamese, mom is French, half Vietnamese. Moved here 30 years ago. From a very prestigious family, went to amazing school. But what he did was moving here, traveling around the region, finding the countries with similar socioeconomics to learn the lay of the land, how they do business, and he's trying to mirror that and do that with his knowledge being done in Vietnam. And it's quite successful. Open Asia today, they own yachts, aviations, businesses, Patek Philippe, luxury markets. And he's very quiet, private. But people like that, if you're able to talk to people like that, you've learned tremendous, not from just the surface. And the big things for me is leadership. And the gap is when people moving here, bringing a lot of what you know, and think that we have the confidence. We're coming from a much more developed society. We've seen the future. We've seen models that work that have not seen here yet. But anything you touch is a startup all over. It's not that simple. It's a lot of work, hard work, and local adaptation, cultural adaptation. That's a big thing from within an organization.
Yeah, I would have to also, I agree with you. In last, let's say, over 10 years, the contribution of overseas Vietnamese is significant in Vietnam. But we're seeing time, right? 2 minutes more. Oh, okay. All right. So we are seeing a lot of contribution of Vietnamese, overseas Vietnamese in Vietnam, with there's a lot of innovation, like you're talking about, Thompson, a lot of things, good things culturally. However, we also see another side where we see Vietnamese in general community are improving a lot and pick up a lot. We also, grow up. So there's the gap between perhaps the overseas and the local community getting closer in some extent. There's different sides, there's different strengths of the two community. So is there anything we think that to continue getting overseas, being able to continue contribute, and with your great exposure, international identity, continue contribute to Vietnam? What would be a skill needed for them to actually, working, adapting, be able to live here and work with Vietnamese? What do you think, Chi Chi?
I can just say few like I think actually this is a conversation I actually just had with my daughter who just finishing her college in America and want to come back to Vietnam. And I would say one thing: if you want to go back to Vietnam, because out there is knowledge and Vietnam is opportunity. Vietnam is opportunity. When you are there, you have many people you compete with in Vietnam. This is where the country is growing and everything. But one thing you need to really learn is learn how to deal with ambiguity. Okay? Taking more risk. And learn, people also talk about adopting culture because thing is different. When you come here and you work with the government, they will tell you, and this is what I grew up in Vietnam, I also don't know how to do it, which is write a công văn. Have you heard that word? I'm a Vietnamese, I grew up here, and then when I write that công văn, and they say, you don't know how to write it. Let me teach you how to write. And you have to learn how to write it, okay? So I would just say, you come in, be confident with your knowledge. You have a global knowledge. You have global connection. That's your strength. But come here, learn with ambiguity. Okay? Learn from the local people. Respect, be humble. Okay? And creating more values. And that is how you're going to win and have a happy life here. Yeah.
Deal with ambiguity.
Yeah.
And how about you?
No, I just want to add in one more thing.
Yeah.
We also say about homecoming, right? Be patient with us. Be patient with your home. Because it takes some time, right? And like, I think that the panelists right before us, Anh Lee mentioned earlier, saying that he has spent at least like first 6 months to get along and become like a year later on to really a part of the community, a part of society. So if you really truly want to make a history in Vietnam when you are back and contribute to the country, so be patient with your homes. That's it.
Do you have any difficulty to stay patient?
No, I think one of the big things that I want to bring it up for this whole community and also House, being a leader, putting these things together with Wang, is many of you thinking or have already been here, coming back to Vietnam. You've been very fortunate to be educated and exposed to a much more developed society. They have made a lot of mistakes. They learn from it and they have the long view. The key word is sustainability. It's very strange and foreign to Vietnam, right? A lot of people bought into this whole thing, which is great. What you know is what you're able to see, the big picture, the future, the vision. What many Vietnamese in the same generation with yours might not see it, because the challenge in terms of education and the country's scale, they haven't seen it. So the opportunity is for you to connect with the local generation. People like Min is very successful. I want to learn from him. He's not born abroad. He didn't live for 20 years abroad, but he's able to see that future coming from Vietnam perspective. People like that can bridge the two generations from abroad and here, and we make it a much more successful economy and whatever you build here. So it's not just we bring what we know from Vietnam, we bring what we know from abroad. But these two need to blend, these two need to work very closely together. Otherwise, you remained very foreign to this land that you're familiar with. Same thing with Cuong was talking about. He couldn't sit and have a conversation or coffee with the local CEOs. That's the gap. We don't want that gap. We want that to blend in the next 5 to 10 years. And I think this is the right time that more people should be attending this conference to bring in more local Vietnamese that, like Min, that integrate into a modern, more developed, bigger picture of society. So help their local businesses and help us to go international in terms of building the image for Vietnam. So
Yeah, great. So, I think we run out of time. It's apparently there is so much of course, being a global and also coming back as a local Vietnam. There's so much of like identity crisis. At the same time, also the beauty of bringing the both world together, and then what exposure overseas and what you see a lot about the difficulty locally, culturally, is so much for you to learn. Perhaps for a deeper talk, we can connect with each of the speaker. I will talk more. This is a big topic. It's not like us, it can be in 30-minute conversation. Let's carry on the talk, and then we can talk more about this culture identities of Vietnam in other topic. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you, all speaker. Yeah.